the Gospels, prayer is such an incredible part of Jesus' life. There were the times when he would work hard and minister to a lot of people, and then he'd withdraw by himself and pray. And it was like a recharge, I think, just reconnecting with his Father. And then there were times when he would withdraw and pray when he was preparing for something.
Prayer has always been in the center of what Jesus did. Before he appointed the 12, he went to pray. Before he multiplied the bread, he prayed. So if you look at all the things that Jesus did, prayer was the driving force.
In the Bible, prayer really does change things. You find throughout the Bible that there are more if-then clauses associated with prayer than any other single human activity. If my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray, then will they hear from heaven and I will heal their land. If they don't pray, there's no healing in the land. If they do pray, then there is healing. The Bible puts a lot of emphasis on the urgency of the people of God being willing to talk to God. And God, he's all powerful, but he's ordained that prayer. It's like there's a reservoir of power that he set aside, like a bank account, that his children tap into when we pray. So things really happen as a result of prayer that otherwise wouldn't happen. And conversely, there's things that God might want to do, but he won't do unless the people of God pray. This is why we need to pray with persistence. When something is really put on our heart to pray, we shouldn't just pray, and think and be done with it. Prayer is not magic. Prayer is a labor of love in the spiritual realm. Prayer is spiritual warfare. Billy Graham said that. He said, prayer isn't preparation for spiritual warfare. Prayer is spiritual warfare.
The idea that Jesus was able to communicate at will with God is shown in the accounts we've got in Scripture. That's also what's promised to us, that we are able to pray essentially on demand. When you want to talk to God, God's listening. It's available right now.
One of the biggest misconceptions I see people have about prayer is that it's a payback sort of mentality. If I pray hard enough, I will get this, or I prayed for this and God didn't give it to me, particularly when it comes to blessings, or particularly when it comes to desires that we have. And people will say, well, I prayed and prayed and prayed and prayed, and God isn't answering me. As if God owes us, as if God owes us and responds to our prayer in our time and in our way. I also think that a lot of people think that rote prayer, particularly as a Catholic, people think, well, if I just say these particular formula, if I say these particular types of prayers, then I have prayed. And I don't think, Jesus wants us to be the best prayers ever. If our prayer isn't leading us to a deeper relationship with God, then it's just lip service.
I just think of prayer as literally anything and everything that I am dealing with in my life, I am dealing with God. I think the thing that I struggle with the most in prayer is I feel disappointed sometimes. Maybe I go into prayer with a lot of expectation and a lot of zeal, and sometimes I feel disappointed when I don't see a result from praying.
I know God answers, not maybe what I really am looking for answers, but I know he gives you an answer. And if you can be open to God in hearing what he has to say instead of really letting your wants influence your thinking, you can definitely hear God.
It is a conversation, which means it's two-way. When someone starts out to pray, if they realize, they need to leave just a bit of time also for God to speak to them or to comfort them. But the more time I spend in prayer, the more I build that relationship, the more I recognize his voice.
I do hear from God. I believe I do. And what it's like is usually this. There's that still small voice. It takes a little training to get in on it, but there's a still small voice. For me, it's never been an audible voice. I know people who actually hear audible voices. I never have. But it's more a prompting in the heart, a sense of I'm supposed to do something.
I do believe God talks to me. God speaks to me, and it always has through other people, because I'm kind of thick-headed and I don't always want to hear what other people have to say, let alone God. More and more I'm being attuned to God, resting and communicating to me in my heart, and noticing the difference between what's of God and what's my own ego and my own self.
Prayer is simply a religious word for talking to God. And so what I encourage people to do is just like this. Right now, God is all around me and you. God's right here. Here he is. Talk to him. Hi, God. And talk to Jesus the way you talk to your best friend, because he is your best friend. There's nothing fancy about it. You don't have to use thous, thither, withers, hitherto, or religious language. You don't have to use special intonation. I love those TV preachers with, God has said, oh, thou heavenly. No, talk to God the way you talk to your best friend. That's all there is to it. It's very, very, very easy.